What's up, everybody? I'm here in Las Vegas at the Punk Rock Museum, about to go chat with Vinnie, co-founder, drummer, lyricist, Less Than Jake, founder of Fuel by Ramen. So many questions for him. I've been a fan of his and everything he's done creatively and business-wise for so long. Stoked to have a chat with him and get to know him more. Let's go. Definitely. How long were you in Jersey for?
16 and a half years. So
awesome.
like for New Jersey, like growing up there was awesome. Like as far as music scene, my brother was 4 years older than me. Kind of found punk rock, and then I kind of, as a younger brother, like kind of went along with it. But living in Jersey was cool because you could go to, you know, take a train, and I was young, like 13 years old, and I was going with my brother who was 17. We would go to CBGB's, the hardcore matinees on Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
So that was like, you know, Cro-Mags, but we started to go for the straight edge bands, and that scene started to kind of bubble up. So that was like Youth of Today, and it was Gorilla Biscuits, and
goodness, man,
that was where it was.
So that's obviously what got you into music and just seeing that as a young teenager.
It was my brother, right? You know, so you have an older brother, he's 4 years older than me, started to play guitar, and I go, well, what am I going to do? Like, I can't play guitar because my older brother's playing guitar, so I guess like, hey, I'll play drums.
Yeah.
And that's what the drums and punk rock, like right at an early age, both of us just went, okay, hey, we're going to do this. And it's funny because he went towards the more like rock side.
Yeah.
Started as punk rocker and just kind of drifted to like Queensryche and like kind of stuff like that, right?
That's a hard left.
Yeah. And I went farther to my own way. I found like Lookout Records after that, and that was my punk rock. It wasn't my brother's punk rock. So that was Isocracy and Operation Ivy and Sam I Am. And that started, I think, you know, a road.
Amazing, dude. My journey is very similar. Like 9 years old, learned how to play drums, Green Day, Rancid, saw Refused on MTV, like as a kid, like what? You know, and like started going to Warped Tour, seeing you guys, and like just the inspiration, your drum kit that I saw, the bass drum over here, like, dude, I saw that on Warped Tour. And as a kid, it was just like, what is that? Why did you do that? How did you do that? The creativity that you and your band and the scene that you were in, that you helped shape, was like so inspirational for me. And it was that feeling, that same feeling, going to the club and seeing those bands. And then, you know, I started making drums and networking in at Warped Tour, like sneaking in and stuff. Like, I'm so curious your journey as a business person and an entrepreneur. You've got your hands in a lot. Like, what took you from that music, playing music, writing music, starting a band and touring, to going, I'm going to do this? Because running a business, as you know, is not easy. And so what age were you like becoming that?
You know what, just to go through it in the general sense, like when I first started, I went up to Gainesville, and Chris, the singer guitar player from Less Than Jake, we were in a band together before that, before he left to go to college, called Needless Guilt. Yeah. And he went up there, and I didn't know what I was really necessarily doing. I was like, I don't know. He was like, you should just come up. And so I went to community college for a year, and then was able to go up to University of Florida after that. And we were like, hey, you know, we should start another band, right? And we started Less Than Jake and doing demos like that. But when I went up to Gainesville, I met Var from No Idea Records. Yeah. And I went, hey, your magazine's awesome, and you have like a record label you put some releases out on. Can I come and just volunteer, write reviews for the magazine and kind of pack records? And he was like, sure. And that was the first moment that I saw someone who was my own age-ish go, hey, I'm putting out my own records, I have my own magazine, I have to deal with advertisement, I have to deal with mail order, I have to deal with everything. And it put like the blueprint and such an influence on me that I want to do that. Yeah. And it took a moment to get over, like, can it happen, can it not happen, just because of money. I was going to college at the time, we're in a small punk band, and I saved up money and went, okay, we're going to do a Less Than Jake, you know, demo tape, and then we're going to do a 7-inch. And it's just because of Far From No Idea. He showed me that my peer, like not only a friend, but someone who was my own age, can do it from the ground up. You don't need the walled garden, you know? And I say that a lot because at a certain point in time in the 90s, distribution was the walled garden, where it was, I could put out a record, but what am I going to do with that record? I don't know. And it was, you had to either know how to go through it, or you had to know how to get up and over it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that, if I'm taking a long road to like sort of the business talk on it, but that moment with VAR where he was like, hey, I have a distribution chain of these 4 things, Mortem Records, and, you know, up in Chicago, it was, I forget what it was, Rots, I think it was.
Yeah.
But
dude,
he was like, this is how you do it. I went, okay. And it started to formulate more and more and more to go, hey, I'm going to do this. And I know, and that's where Fueled by Ramen, like, well, but even before that, Less Than Jake, we started to do kind of trick records. Hey, it's going to be a cheese-shaped record, and we're going to do that, and we're going to sell it on tour. And then we're going to do, you know, birthday cake-shaped record, and we're going to do that and sell it on tour and have mail order. And that was the top of that pyramid of, hey, I want to put out records, and I want to still be creative, but try to make a business out of being creative.
Dude, that's amazing. Like, and it's so, the reason I'm doing these interviews and chatting with people that have inspired me to do the things that I've done in the music industry is really to hope to give some key points and a little bit of a blueprint of what inspired you to do what you did, because everything you just said, like the wall, and it's like find a way to go over it, right? Like that's so important in the hustle that you had, but the inspiration and the welcoming that, you know, they had to let you come into no idea and figure that out, and like just DIY, like going to Kinko's and flyering shows. There's such an element to that of understanding that ethos that you're going to carry forever. And what an incredible story. Like the record that you guys would put out, it was like I would see that stuff and the aesthetic that you guys made, and it was like, I want to do that with drums. Like I want to make drums different. Why do they all have to be that? Why can't they have some funky colors and a different color badge and let people choose? And it opened my mind to all of that, and it's so cool to see how that happened for you.
You know, there's a point where, you know, if you're looking at the sort of the overall arching, like sort of drum, like the customization of drums, right?
Yeah.
And it was the Orange County guys, right? And that was my first look at it, and I went, oh, this is super cool. You mean I can pick the wrap, pick the lugs, pick everything? And I was like, this is very cool. But if it had me in that sort of disruptive mode always, where I went, if they could do that, then I could do something. So Rhino, who is right now like sort of the Descendants tour manager and everything, but before that was with Phoenix TX.
Yeah.
And I go to Rhino, I go, hey, I would love to do that. He goes, hey, I'll find a powder coating company for the metal, and let's just do your stuff, and we could figure out how to trick it out. And I was with Premier Percussion at the time, and I called Joe, and I went, hey, can you send me a drums? We're going to do this with your drums, right? He's like, I don't know about that. I go, everything's cool. We're gonna do it. He's like, okay. And that was like the first taste of like being able to imprint myself onto the drums I was playing, besides stickers or besides spray paint. And I remember seeing SJC and going, fuck, this is like, I was jealous a bit, because I was like, fuck, I would love to have a company like that. Drummers can come and trick out their kids. So I've watched your company grow, right?
That's
just from being like, just in the punk rock scene and having drummers play it, but then seeing it grow larger and larger. And I always like to, I like to follow people's journeys, right? And go, how's that company doing? And kind of like look back or see, the logo, and then that leads me to go check out other things and see the creative sphere that happens with your company. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much for saying that, dude. It's like making me so stoked, because it's like the torch of all the generations. Like Rhino and I became friends because I would go sneak out backstage at Warped Tour and like scope on your kit and take pictures with like my camera.
That's awesome.
And like get them printed and shit. I have photos of your kit with your cases
awesome.
backstage at Warped Tour. And like, what did he do there? Like, the tricking out the little things that you wouldn't even think of led me to just a couple years ago, I was like, I'm going to buy a laser so I can make the gaskets on the lugs not black.
That's awesome.
Somebody wants them to be lime green, they should get them lime green, you know? And it's like all stemming back from this whole scene and what you were such a big part of, and obviously fueled by like the bands that were signed to that label, your label, like the Bigwig 7-inch for me as a kid, like was such a Bigwig, what? This band is incredible. And it shaped my drumming, like me as a musician, you know? And then the bands obviously later on that ended up getting big, and SJC was there with them, and it became a whole thing, and it's truly changed my life. So thank you for doing your label and that, because, you know, those are the things pre-internet that would inspire people like us, creatives and people in the music scene.
You know, there is a difference now too, because it's such a wealth of knowledge online that you can go to, well, you know, customized drums, search it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's something in there. You can see the inspiration and you see other people's, you know, what they've been doing and what they are doing. But in the 90s and where the internet, or the early 2000s, the internet was slow and awkward and not filled with the insanity that it is now. So finding that inspiration was going to shows, was talking to other drummers and other builders.
Like,
getting a zine.
You know, passing out flyers, man. I have the itch so bad. You know what it's like running a business. There's a lot of things and some of the ideas that you're like, this would probably hit hard and do well, but it's going to take a lot of work to do it right. I want to do a zine so bad, because we're competing on the internet and doing all those things because we need to. But wow, the days of mail order catalogs and like No Idea Records, Lookout Records catalogs, like, come on.
Yeah, you know, I've always thought about going back. Well, it's not a secret, right? But, you know, if you look back over your shoulder and you see zines and you see even postcards for events and things like that, there's a need and a necessity to do physical media still.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people do, because they're used to going, hey, I'm going to send a Facebook event and come to my show. They weren't flyering for the show. And now it's, hey, go to, you know, whatever it is, Instagram or however you're marketing your show or your event. I like the physical media still. I like a zine and picking it up and seeing how people do that and having that item always, right?
For sure.
So if you go back into, like, let's say Fueled by Ramen was designed because I was on tour every 3 weeks to 4 weeks with Less Than Jake. We would come home for a couple weeks and then we would go back on road. But we were just, you know, sort of playing with local bands, and I'd go, oh shit, how great is The Impossibles? How great is Bigwig? How great is Animal Chin, right?
Yeah.
And I would talk to them and go, hey, I loved your band. I loved your band tonight. Oh, what do you guys have out? Here's a demo tape.
Yeah.
And it's shitty, but late at night we'd be driving and I'd put it in, and I remember it's The Impossibles, and I listened to their demo tape and I went, like, this is so good. I listened to it. I was on the late shift driving the van. I listened to the demo tape for The Impossibles for about like 4.5 hours on the overnight, just on repeat. And I went, I have to put out the record. And I called up Rory and went, hey, we played with each other, you know, in Austin, and I've put out some Less Than Jake records, but I want to put out an Impossibles record, you know. And it's like, what? And but that started the journey, you know, finding a bunch of other bands as Less Than Jake would tour. But it was the need to show other people what I was seeing and falling in love with, and trying to make it shine a spotlight on other scenes and other bands besides Less Than Jake. Because sometimes when you're in business with other people, and a band is business, regardless of what anyone says, it doesn't start like that, but if it hangs around long enough, it ends like that, right? And I wanted to do more with Less Than Jake, but I couldn't. Hey, that's enough records. We don't need 5 other tricked out vinyl records to put out. Okay, then I'm going to do it with other bands.
Yeah.
And the need to expose people to the things that I'm liking and wanting to show what's been inspiring me and the bands that we've been playing with, I'm gonna start Field Band Ramen, and I'm going to start to push out through my filter what I love, and I did.
You did, man, and you did it in such a way. And I gotta say, the late night van drives, pre-iPhone, Wi-Fi, even the thought of taking a laptop on tour, like the van drives, and especially like you said, after you play a show where you're inspired, you're seeing kids, you're seeing new bands, people checked you out, give you props, buy a couple t-shirts, you're stoked. And you go in the van and obviously you're not sleeping well, so you're just thinking, and that's exactly how my brain was. And going to shows, I'd network SJC to the bands we played with, or even if there's 20 kids there, 5 kids, those are 5 more kids I can market to and like get to either like my band or, hey, you know anybody that plays drums? And I'd come home and check my email and like, whoa, I got like some emails on that. This is working. And it's incredible. And you've done it in such a way that when I was coming up, Fuel By was like, it's at that like level of like, I don't even know if I can't send a demo tape. That label's like killing it. I don't think we're worthy for that, you know? And it was so cool. It's really cool to hear that story and like what inspired you to do all those things. Like I said, Bigwig and some of the early bands you put out, like my band, I played in a band called No Trigger, and we drove to Chicago and we were like, we're gonna play the Fireside Bowl because we saw Bigwig play there.
I love
and
Fireside Bowl.
Like followed Bigwig and Stereo Typewriter on tour, being like, can we get on a show? Like just hustling. And I think there's something really special about that I feel is a little missing now with the social media and all that sort of stuff, like sending a DM and a cold email, of course, but something to be said about just going to a show and waiting for some sort of serendipitous thing to happen where you meet the right person at the right time. I was chatting with Cyrus Baluki yesterday, and he's like, saw the tour manager of MXPX in the parking lot, gave her she gave me tickets to the show. They played again in Florida. I gave her a demo packet, and then MXPX takes us on tour 2 months later. It's that stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it still can.
Absolutely. And Kevin Lyman's been around here today from Warped Tour.
Yeah.
And Less Than Jake, we've done so many of those Warped Tours that I've seen bands in the parking lot hustling. Here's, a CD player, having people listen, selling, this just run off CDRs on Xerox. And I've seen bands build up following and become massive just on the hustle. From that moment of would never have happened and would have never been built if they weren't out there and not hiding and being a shredder and writing great songs. And there's room for those people as well, right?
100%.
But there's also those moments of being able to go, hey, I'm out there. Like, listen to my band, see what I do. And I'll be the first to admit it. And this is no shade on myself, and I'm not expecting, no. I am an okay drummer, period. I'm not a great drummer. I'm a punk rock drummer, and I'm okay.
You're a great punk rock drummer.
Boom, right? And I'm okay, and I've always been okay with that, right? But there's other people that lean on their strength of being, I'm a great guitar player, I'm a great drummer, technical, this is my thing, this is my passion, and they work at it. My passion was always, what creative disruption can I go on to next? Hey, this vinyl record, this is cool, right? But I want to do a vinyl record that's a 1/4 inch thick with holes drilled through it. Dude. And that's what, I love that. And that to me became the next step in sort of a business journey. I was in Universal City Walk in California, in Los Angeles, and I went into a store called Sparky's. Yeah. And it was like just a weird, like kind of like toy store that was on the City Walk. And I go in and I find this bobblehead, and it's a devil, and it's this 50s sort of aesthetic. And I go, this is so fucking cool. And there was a wall of them, and I went, this is so cool. And I flipped it over and I looked at it, and it was, oh, this is a company called Funko. All right, I was like, okay. And this was again like email communication. Yeah. So I dialed 411 information. I went, hey, I'm looking for a company called Funko, and it's in Washington State. And I got the phone number, and I cold called Mike Becker, who was the founder of Funko, and I went, hey, I'm Vinnie from Less Than Jake. I saw this at Sparky's, and I really want, Less Than Jake's known for doing vinyl records that are fun and interesting, but also kind of disruptive. He goes, it's nice to meet you, and I feel the same about doing toys. We should set up a meeting and talk more. I go, absolutely. So about a week later, I called him back, and that started sort of, he became my mentor for making toys, but even more than just plastic items, just a complete like 2, 3, 4 more steps in the evolution of Less Than Jake in merchandise.
Creative thinking and that inspiration that you can get from somebody that you went through that journey and you just threw it out there, man. I have the same thing with Kevin. Like literally, awesome. I snuck into Warped Tour as a kid. Literally, like I snuck backstage. I was drooling over the drums. I would set up a tent with my brother, pass out flyers, and they found out. Kate Truscott was like, "Who the hell are you guys?
That's awesome.
You owe us some money. You got to leave." And then I ended up connecting with Kevin later on and told him. And years ago, I hit him up. Can you introduce me to Steve Van Dorn? 2 seconds later, done. Steve became a mentor for me of, this whole loyal to the craft thing that we're doing. Steve and the team at Vans helped kind of make it a reality. And the importance of just putting yourself out there, but in the right way where you have a purpose, you have a why, and you're presenting yourself that way. And doors can open, and it's incredible.
It's true. And go back into, if there's anyone that's sort of watching this, mentorship is super important. It's finding like-minded individuals who've been on a journey and going to them and going, hey, I'm stuck here, or I have questions about this. And finding the right mentor is a cornerstone to a bigger picture for anyone who's thinking that they want to lean into business or guide whatever they're doing, whether it be creative or not. You need to have that mentor. And for me, Kevin was another person, right? Mm-hmm. Kevin Lyman managed us for a while, and watching him through Warped Tour of how he treated people, right? And take out the business side of it. It was on your day-to-day how you're treating folks, right? Yes. And no one does it perfect. And I'll be the first to admit that there's always mistakes and there's always missteps, right? But that's part of the journey.
Yes.
And sometimes you go, oh, that misstep was massive. But at the same time, you learn from it and you try to move on and you modify. But the important thing is looking over your shoulder going, I have people that I can go to go, I don't understand this, or I have a problem with this. And to be able to be enlightened or have a guiding hand take you to a place that you wouldn't be otherwise. It's essential.
Essential. Mine, I was very lucky to have my dad who I would sit with and talk and throw ideas, and he'd always give me that other perspective. And Kevin was that for me, what you just said. His work ethic, I would go to Warped Tour, and as a fan, pre me sneaking in backstage, like I would see him early morning, walking the line, making sure, you guys good, everybody good, every single year. And I watched it from when I was 12, 13, 14, up until I was 20. And, early 20s, just that was so baked into my mind, the leadership that he had over the whole thing. And it, backstage and things like that, I'm sure things would fall off the rails like everything in life and business will do eventually sometime or another. But that leadership and that mentorship that I was able to gain, that's the number one, I feel like.
It is, and you touched on it too. It's that you have to put yourself out there. It doesn't matter how great you are as a drummer, right? Or how creative you are, or how many good ideas that you have. If you're not out there and if you're not pushing yourself forward, there's no one who's going to do that for you. Yeah. Occasionally you find a mentor and they'd be able to push you into a front of a line or in front of somebody. And I get that. But if you weren't hustling to begin with, and I hate that word, right? Yep. But if you weren't actively pushing into your idea, pushing you forward, no one's going to do that for you. And I've come in contact with so many people that what they're doing is amazing. But I'm like, what are you doing to show other people how amazing this is? Well, I have a job and I have a wife or a husband or a boyfriend or whatever. I can't do anything and I'm locked into not, I don't have money or I don't have time or I don't have the energy. Dude, all we have is time.
Yeah.
right? And the energy comes for what you want and the passion that it is. Money comes whenever, right? But you have the energy and you have the time. And if there's anyone that's watching this again, that's I have this great idea, or I've been doing this, but it's been sort of, you've been living in an echo chamber in your basement or your bedroom. You got to step out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying step out on Instagram, you know, or whatever format. You got to step out. You got to step out of your comfort zone. You know, if you're comfortable in the social media forum, then jump out of that. And if it feels stale here, you have to move. And you have to recognize the fact that the idea is good, but the forum that you're at is not working, and you have to modify and you have to move.
Yes.
Because if you don't do that, then it's just the idea is going to languish and it's going to circle the drain, and you're going to be unhappy about it because you believe in the idea and you're passionate about the idea, but eventually you're going to run out of gas.
Yeah.
The car's going to be done.
100%. That resonates with me so much, and it's like the funny part, I guess, if there is a funny part, the catch-22 is that when you go and do all those things and get outside your comfort zone and go for it, that's when the energy comes, because you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the process and the self-awareness of being like, okay, I am in this state. I've experienced that multiple times over the past couple decades. Even doing this, like, you know, these guys are helping me, like, push me out of my comfort zone. Like, dude, the stories, and like, remember 15-year-old you, and being able to just be here and do it and get outside my comfort zone. And man, your story resonates with me so much, and it's so inspiring. And you know, I'm so stoked that we've been able to meet up and have this conversation now, genuinely. And I'm like, dang, like I feel like I missed out on a mentor kind of figure by not introducing myself to you. I think I was intimidated and just like, dude, that's Vinnie. I gotta, Rhino, tell him I said what's up, you know?
You know, it's funny because there's Jono from Swellers, right?
Yeah.
And he's no trigger, right?
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
right?
he's playing.
And I would always go to him when I would run into Swellers. They would play shows, and he's like one of he was like one of the few like forbidden beat drummers, right? Like the sort of like the fast, like I go, dude, you got to keep that alive, you know? He's like,
for sure.
No, you know, and you know, the Swellers were moving towards more into like sort of the rock and away from the forbidden beat. I was like, dude, you got to keep it alive. You got to keep that. And for me, I always find that like when I find like-minded individuals too, right? It puts a spin on it. So I would watch dude play drums, and I would hear the thoughts that they would have about progressing as a band, and I'm like, sometimes you got to stay here.
I love that you said that, man. Dude, I met Jono and the dudes in the Swellers. I was on that tour I was telling you about, going to Chicago, and we played with them in much the same at this huge gymnasium, and it was like, I felt so alive. I was like, man, there's so many kids here, much the same crushes. The Swellers, we had just seen them play for the first time, and they shred. And they were kids back then. When I met them, you know, made them drums. They stayed at my parents' house. They actually helped me move my factory from my grandma's basement to our first actual little building. We put drum heads in their van and stuff and moved it. And like, yeah, it's sometimes when it works like that and it is your core thing and you're gaining progression, you know, it might be slow, but stay true, you know, to the roots sometimes. And if you have to go outside the box a little bit, ask your mentor, ask your peers that you trust. Hey man, I'm going to try this. What do you think about that? What about this? Yeah. You know, I can take it up a notch.
You know, sometimes the pool is great and you can stay in the pool, right? There's no rut. I guess the reason why I'm bringing it up is because we're talking about the advance and progression of idea, but sometimes you're comfortable in the pool and the pool is big enough for you to do your thing and grow. Sometimes it's okay to still stay in the pool. You can have aspirations to go into the ocean and this vast whatever, right? But like sometimes it's okay to learn and grow in a place that you're comfortable, that is supporting you as well. There's no, as we're talking about mentorship, my brain is like kind of like churning through it. And again, it's that there's no need to rush. There's no need to go, hey, it's not working. It's not popular. It's not what I want. Now I have to change, and now I have to go do more and more and more. Sometimes it's okay just to live and grow and prosper inside of your own pool and your own sort of economic and the weird economy of being a punker or weird economy of being a drum thing. It's okay to be there still. You don't have to be in every store, or you don't have to tour around the globe constantly, or you don't have to put a record out every year, or do whatever you're putting, self-imposing these sort of.
Yeah, you think the roadmap should be, you know.
And there's no reason for that. Sometimes to be able to live and grow inside your own space, inside your own skin, that's as important as having aspirations to get out of that pool and move to somewhere else that's bigger.
100%. Man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and tell me your story. And you've inspired so many people and myself to do creative things that I never thought were possible. So
thanks for having me.
I hope some people listening can take some key moments. There was a lot of great stuff there. Your whole story resonates so huge with me. So thank you for your time, man.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Right on, man.